Hello, intuitive coders. My name is Shawn, and I will be your instructor today. You're watching part 3 of Markdown Basics in the Data Science and Machine Learning series on the Coding with Shawn channel. In this lesson, we are going to finish / wrap up our knowledge of Markdown, and of course, because this is the final lesson, I would definitely recommend that you do go over everything once again, just to make sure that you do have a good grasp on Markdown. Because while Markdown is something we're going to be using mainly just to take notes in the middle of our code, it is incredibly important that you do understand how to properly use Markdown. So please do watch this video again, whether you do understand something or not. Again, watching something over again is going to get you some more education and you're going to learn more. So I would definitely recommend that if at all possible. And if you still cannot understand anything, no worries, just go ahead and comment down below and I will help you out. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, let's talk about horizontal rules. So to create a horizontal line, super simple. Just use 3 or more asterisks, dashes, or underscores on a line by themselves. So for example, we can put 3 asterisks like this, not 4, 3. And if you can see, there is a very, very thin, but very, very clearly visible horizontal line made here. It's great that it's there, and it is very, very difficult to see, but at least it is still there for you. But we can also do 3 dashes, right? And we do need to make sure it is in Markdown mode. It gives us the same output. There's no difference within the lines. They're the same height, length, width, thickness, everything. And we can also use simply 3 underscores. So 1, 2, 3 underscores. We need to make sure it's in Markdown mode. Boom. All 3 lines here you can see made by the 3 different methods they are all completely identical in all ways, whether it be by length, width, height, thickness, anything. They're all the exact same. So for horizontal rules, a few do's and don'ts. You want to make sure you put a blank line before, because if not, it could be a heading. So, well, let's do this super simply here. So try to put a blank line beforehand, right? And after a given horizontal line, right? And if we run this, it's super, and this is the reason I like this one is because now that we have text before and after, the line is, well, quite frankly, much easier to be seen. We can do it any way we want it to, right? And so everything will work out like much more blissfully than it would if we are not. Because let me show you something else. Without blank lines, this is a heading. Quite frankly, it is a heading. 3 dashes. Refrain from doing this. Right, you see, we get it as a heading rather than a line. And that, I like to remind you, is a Markdown shortcut to make a heading. Remember that for headings, we can put lines underneath the things too. And if we put more, no big deal, same thing. So go ahead and make sure that you do remember this, because this is an important principle, which if you do not remember, will just give you a bunch of headings. Okay, so that is it about horizontal lines. Super awesome that we finished that. Let's talk about links. So this is nothing too complicated or complex, but to create a link, we just enclose the text in brackets and then follow it immediately with the URL in parentheses. So we can put, for example, you can put whatever you want, but I'm just going to put my favorite YouTube channel is Coding with Shawn. And this is going to be our text, and then we can follow it up right beside it with a URL. So in this case, you can put https://youtube.com. Oh, no, we need a www.youtube.com /coding with Shawn, right? Again, very, very simple. And if we run this, we get my favorite YouTube channel is Coding with Shawn. If we click on this, it'll take you directly to where the given URL is. So it takes us to this channel in this case. So it is super awesome, super simple, because it is a lot more descriptive to be able to use a title than to just put a link. We can just put a link, but I mean, quite frankly, it's not going to be as descriptive or as useful when trying to be very short and sweet and also very descriptive at the same time. But moving on, adding titles. So of course you can optionally add a title for a link, and this just appears as a tooltip when the user hovers over the link. To add a title, you just have to enclose it in parentheses after the URL. So if we do something like this, so actually, let's just go ahead and paste the code for this, because the code is going to be very simple. So we put it like this, right? And then we just make a few, we've just modified a few things. So coding with Shawn, and then after that we can put the best channel to learn how to code, right? Super simple again. We just need our period afterwards. And if we run this in Markdown, then same output but more things, because this is, if we hover over this link, you can see that rather than just being nothing, it actually says the best channel to learn how to code, which is what we put in our quotes. And the reason, like, if you have ever been to a website and hovered over a link, I guarantee you at least once in your life you've definitely had one of these tooltips. And that's super useful, because then you can have a hidden description, but one that people can still easily find if they try to. But that is very, very simple. That is it for adding titles. Let's talk about URLs and email addresses. So to quickly turn a URL or an email address into a link, we just have to enclose it in angle brackets. So no big complications here. Make sure you're in Markdown mode, put an angle bracket, and https://www.youtube.com/codingwithshawn. And this is just turning it into a link with the angle brackets. And for an email address, we could also put, for example, at example.com, right? If we do this, you can now see that we have both of our things here. If we put our line break using our Markdown method of 2 spaces, which again is not recommended, but in this, just for speed purposes here, if we do that, you can see we have a link here, which of course is not the same because it's not a title, and this would lead us to a mail to, and it would open our mail app. But point is, we have turned all of these into effective URLs and at least clickable things, which is the whole point here. So formatting links. To emphasize links, add asterisks and before and after the brackets and the parentheses. So to denote links as code, we just add backticks in the brackets. So for example, I love supporting the asterisk, and then open a left side bracket, and let's just put WHO, which is the World Health Organization. We can put a left side parenthesis, or what we call an opening parenthesis, https://who.int, right? No issues here either. We put our 2 closing asterisks and then a period. This is this is Markdown part 2. Of course, we do have 1 asterisk in the beginning here and at the end here first we need to put the link. We put our link, so https / and I'll just put coding with Shawn here, and then our closing asterisk here, and our period. Alright, see the part on backtick markdown. Closing backtick. Closing backtick is nothing unique here. The closing backtick is literally just another backtick. There's no difference between the opening and closing backticks, by the way. And then we could put hashtag code, for example. We don't need it, but that's just for simplicity's sake. So now, what we have here is, I love supporting the WHO. If we click on this, it'll take us to the WHO's official website. This is Markdown Part 2. If we click on this, it'll take you to my channel. And I could have put the video link here, but same thing. And then see the part on Markdown, hashtag code. Because we don't have a part called hashtag code, we're not seeing anything here, but it's the same basic idea. So I hope you're getting the point. Now, let's talk about, well, let's first fix this. Alright, if we click on Markdown here, though, it's going to take us to hashtag code, but again, that doesn't exist, so yeah. Now, this is very, very useful because it allows us to format specific links in really any way we want to. And we are still adding links here, so we are still within the link subsection, by the way. So let's talk about reference style links. Reference style links are a special kind of link that make URLs easier to display and read in Markdown. Reference style links are constructed in two different parts. The part you keep in line with your text, and the part you store somewhere else in the file to keep the text easy to read. Okay, formatting the first part of the link. The first part of a reference style link is formatted with two sets of brackets. The first set of brackets surrounds the text that should appear linked. The second set of brackets displays a label used to point to the link you're storing elsewhere in your document. Although not required, you can include a space between the first and second set of brackets. The label in the second set of brackets is not case sensitive and can include letters, numbers, spaces, or punctuation. So let's do some examples. So let's put, for example, IPython, and then 1, right? After that, we can put IPython, and then a space here, followed by 1. Now, note that these two are going to give you the exact same output. Either way you do it, it's still going to give you the same thing. If this was a link, it's still leading you to the same spot, okay? So if you have a space, don't think that's going to make any difference. Space or not, you're going to be led to the same spot. It's not required, but you can still use it. Okay, so the second part of the link. The second part of our link is formatted with the following attributes. 1, the label in brackets, followed immediately by a colon in at least one space. So for example, we would have something around the borders of label, and then a colon. The URL for the link, which you can optionally enclose in angle brackets if that is better for you. And then the optional title, again, very much so optional. You don't have to put it there, which you can close in double quotes, single quotes, or parentheses. So there are many different ways we could do this. So a super simple way we could do this is this. Go ahead and put 1. And the reason I deleted that was because that was just an example. We're not going to need that in any way. https / and let's put the channel link again, youtube.com/codingwithshawn. The reason I'm doing this is because we've already used it in the past in our previous ones here and here and here, so it's going to be much easier for you. And then that is itself would work. That completely is functional, and it will work perfectly fine, right? Other ways that will work will include putting a title. So let's copy this code here. Okay, so we just take this entire thing, copy it. Here we can put a title. So for example, coding with Shawn. And in Markdown mode, that provides a title for this. And we could do it with a single quote like this, parentheses like this. Okay, and then we could also have done it with double quotes, which we did, single quotes once again, and then once again we can also do it with a parentheses. And remember that a space is not required but is perfectly okay, and we can also enclose these in angle brackets if we want to. So for example, this, angle bracket here, angle bracket here. Whoops. Alright, and that gives you the same output as you would with anything else. Notice here that everything works exactly the way it's supposed to. We can add a space here too if we want to, and in that case we won't get any output. But also notice that Markdown is not throwing us any type of special circumstance. We're just getting a blank line here, and that is also incredibly important because we can place this second part anywhere in the document. So, for example, in this case, we're actually going to put the parts together. Before we put the parts together, we're going to do something very interesting, and I think you'll like this. So, we're going to keep this here. But what we can do is we can put something like this, right? So, again, there's the first part of the link and the second part of the link. I showed it to you in one part, but I showed you one part each, but let me show it to you together. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the first part like this. Let's just say we want cutting with Shawn here, right? And then another bracket set here, and then 1. Okay, make sure it's in Markdown mode. Boom, it's just gonna give you this standard output. And then we need the second part, so we can put it in a bracket, right? And then a colon after the bracket, and then https://youtube.com, www.youtube.com/codingwithshawn. Okay, this is perfectly valid in Markdown mode, and it will work. As you can see here, it perfectly syncs in with our line here. And so that is how we're going to put it together. Remember that it doesn't matter. We can add a title after it, such as, Coding with Shawn afterward, if we want to. But again, note that it's not required. It'll still give us this similar output. So let's now talk about how we can put it into a spot. So we can add a URL as a standard URL link to a paragraph, and it looks something around this in Markdown. So instead of doing anything extra, let's go back up to here and copy these lines. All right, for many months, etc., etc. Here we can paste this, right? And then use our second part here. So 1, and then let's put it in angle brackets here. https www.youtube.com/coding with Shawn, closing bracket here, and then coding with Shawn. Whoops. Alright, and so in both instances here, we're still getting a very similar thing. There is a HTML way to do this, and that is this. Let's copy this exact same code, okay, and paste it here. And for HTML, what we would do is inside angle brackets, href equals https www.youtube.com/codingwithshawn. Right? Title equals coding with Shawn. Okay, closing angle bracket. Let's just put CWS, and then Alright, super simple there too. If we are in Markdown mode, then we will get CWS as a hyperlink type thing, which is a minor difference, but is still basically the same thing. We're just using CWS as a hyperlink instead of the standard link which we used in Markdown, or the Markdown syntax. So some practices are, not all Markdown applications will agree on how to handle spaces. For compatibility's sake, try to put any spaces with parenthesis 20. So for example, if your site was www.example.com/awesome content here, well, these spaces may not be properly handled. That's why, to make sure that everything works properly, use parentheses and 20 in between here. That will allow Markdown to easily be able to tell that you have spaces here, and it at least makes sure that your link is recognized. As you see, if you look here, down here in the bottom left corner, I know it might be a little bit small, but if you look in this bottom right corner, it says www.example.com/awesome content here without this parentheses 20. That is because the parentheses 20 literally means there is a space here. I'm only here as an alternative to a space. The parentheses 20 is recognized in the entire internet world as an alternative to a space. Okay, so to add an image, it's really simple what we do. We just add an exclamation mark followed by an alt text in brackets and then the path. We can also add a title if we want to. So let's go back to Google and search up whatever we want, but let's search up YouTube. We're going to be using the YouTube logo. Okay, let's use the official YouTube logo. Save the image alongside our Linux tux. We download it here. Okay, and so let's talk about what we do here. No big deal here either. We just put an exclamation point, a bracket, and we can put alt text here. So we can put, for example, YouTube's official logo. Okay. After that, we're going to need to put parentheses and the path. So put a parenthesis pair here, but go ahead and click show in folder, or just go into navigate to your folder and find it here. And now what you need to do is get the path. So you can just click here or double click here, and it should be able to give you the given path of this, although you may have issues like I just did. And what you can do here is click on view if you're on Windows. If you're on Mac or Linux, then it'll be a little bit different, but don't worry, it is still the same basic process, and it may even be easier. But if nothing works, then just try manually typing in the path, and if still that doesn't work, then just comment down below and I will help you out. So for here, what we need to do is click on the home button, and then there will be a button called copy path. Since we have selected this, it'll copy our path directly here for Windows. Again, for Mac and Linux, it'll be a little different. You may even have to end up typing it manually, but fear not, it's not going to be any difficulty for you. So before we put our closing bracket though, inside it we want to put an optional title. Note, very importantly, that it's not necessary, and also note that we do not need quotes when putting our path in. So here we can put YouTube logo, right? And we do need to make sure it is on Markdown. And if we do, we can see here that we have nothing working for some reason. Okay, the way I like to insert images is really much easier. We go up here into edit, and then we click insert image. And we can just drag this thing here, or you can click choose file and find it. Here, super simple. We import it, and boom, we have the logo available for us immediately. Super simple. So let's talk about images. So to add in images, we just add an exclamation mark followed by alt text in brackets, and then add the path or the URL. So we don't need to do all that drama because we are super intelligent programmers, and we're just going to use the GUI to make our lives easier. So first you need an image. You can just use the Linux Tux image that we already downloaded, or you can do what I did and you can search up for YouTube and Google and then go to the images part and just download this image. And then go to a new cell. So I'm going to be using this cell here. Make sure it is in Markdown mode. Then go here to the Edit tab. Okay. And then click Insert Image. Okay. Then click Choose File. It's going to lead you to the Downloads tab. If this is not where yours is located, just go ahead and navigate to where yours is. And then just click on the image we want to insert. Alright. It'll do all the difficult work for us. We can just reap the benefits. There you go. We have YouTube's official logo now embedded within our Jupyter Notebook. Super awesome, super simple, just amazing. Now, just a quick alert for all of you awesome people that are downloading this Jupyter Notebook. This is specific. Just go ahead and make sure that you are changing any of the necessary details here, because yours might not be called yt1200.png. So if it's not, no big deal. But if you have downloaded this exact image, which is the first one that pops up if you go into the images tab on YouTube, then it should work. All right, so make sure you are downloading that image or changing the details as necessary. So we can also link an image's URL, preferably using HTML's internal image inserter. So what we can do is we can do img src equals, all right, and then we just need to copy the image link, all right, and close these in quotes, angle bracket. Again, same output. We can see that we have gotten this using the exact HTML inserting using the img src command. We have gotten the logo inserted directly from the link provided. Super awesome, super easy, super useful, as usual. So, let's talk about escaping characters. This is an entirely new thing. We're no longer talking about images. We're not talking about escaping characters. So to display a literal character that would otherwise be used to format text in a Markdown document, we just add a backslash in front of the character. So, make sure you're in Markdown mode, do a backslash, and then an apostrophe. Without this backslash, this would be a bullet in an unordered list. So now we have actually gotten this apostrophe, and the statement I have written here is absolutely true. In our Markdown mode, this would in fact be a bullet in an unordered list, so we do have to be very careful because Markdown formatting can sometimes cause issues when we are writing our code, so be very careful with that. Now, there are certain characters which you can use a backslash to escape with. So this is the list of characters. First of all, I'd like to say no big deal here either. It is a very simple, rather simple way anyway to do all of this. So let's go ahead and comment all of this out so that we don't have any issues with formatting. I'm just gonna go ahead and put a comment here, and the reason I am asking you once again to download this notebook is because that way you can get access to awesome resources like this, which would otherwise be very, very difficult for you to get a hold of. So there we go. We can use our backslash, backtick, asterisk, underscore, curly braces, brackets, parentheses, pound or hash sign, plus sign, minus sign, dash, hyphen, period, or dot, exclamation point, or exclamation mark, and our pipe. So that is a pretty big list of characters, but they all will work just as well in most cases. So HTML. Now, this is very important. Many Markdown applications allow you to use HTML tags in Markdown formatted text. This is super useful if you prefer to use certain HTML tags to Markdown syntax, which throughout these Markdown basics, you may have seen some HTML tags which you would prefer over the standard Markdown syntax. So, for example, some people much so prefer the HTML tags for images, which we used in our image IMG SRC a little bit earlier. Using HTML is also very helpful when you need to change the attributes of an element, like specifying the color of text or changing the width of an image. To use HTML, we just place the tags in the text of your Markdown formatted document. So, again, it's very, very simple. We can just, for example here, we can put this word is bold. This em word closing / em word is italic, or is italic, right? Make this Markdown, and boom, it works perfectly. Our HTML tags will work in most cases, and when I say most, I mean practically all cases, just as good as Markdown will. So there's no reason really most of the time to prefer Markdown over the HTML method unless there are significant time savings. Now, let's talk about some of the practices that you should follow when using HTML. So first of all, primarily for security reasons, not all Markdown applications support the use of HTML in Markdown documents. When in doubt or when confused, check your Markdown application's documentation. Luckily, Jupyter Notebook will, in almost all cases, allow us to use HTML. That is good, but if you're using a different Markdown editor, it is probably a good idea for you to check your documentation there to see if it does indeed support usage of all HTML all the time. Now, always try to use blank lines to separate block level HTML elements such as div, such as div, such as table, such as pre, and such as P for paragraph. Now, try not to indent them with tabs or spaces because it can cause formatting issues some of the time. So preferably, but again, not necessarily, try to use things other than tabs or spaces if possible. So, you cannot use Markdown syntax inside block level HTML tags. So for example, if we put P and then italic and bold and then P, closing P, and run this, it won't work because never are we able to use Markdown syntax within HTML, because HTML and Markdown, though they can both work most of the time within Markdown, are still separate, discrete things, and they will not work within each other most of the time, especially when using Markdown within HTML. So, awesome job, guys. That is where we're done today, but hold on, wait, we're not done yet. First of all, congratulations, you have finished all Markdown basics, and you can now proficiently use Markdown. Now let's quickly talk about what we did today. We did a lot, by the way. We started with reviewing what we did last time, which was code, our few lists, our description of Markdown, headings, paragraphs, line breaks, bold, and italic. Then we talked about our shortcuts. We talked about how we could use the B for bold, the I for italic, And we then talked about block quotes. We first just used a standard block quote. We then used a line broken block quote. We then used a nested block quote with many nests here, if you can see. We then used bold inside of a block quote, including actually this is a heading. And then we used 2 bullet points here. And then we used some Markdown syntax to use bold and italic in a final sentence, this is a very good example of multi-purposing. We used many of the things we have learned so far within this. Finally, we did a citation within block quote to top everything off. Then we talked about lists again. Even though we have done lists at the very beginning of the last video, we still did not cover everything, and for that reason, and that reason only, we went through everything once again and added more to it, including the Markdown method to do ordered lists, to do unordered lists, and the HTML method. Then we used the Markdown and HTML methods to indent an item. We then talked about a lot of things with the values and the fact with the shortcuts that we could use for bullet points, which are, of course, the dash, slash, hyphen, or not slash, but the dash, which is also referred to as the hyphen some of the time, and the plus, and then the asterisk. Then we used block quotes within lists. Then we used code blocks within lists. Then we used an image within lists. Then we talked about standard code. We learned that backticks were used to signify code within Markdown. We added code block in Markdown. We did horizontal lines, and then we did a very clearly visible horizontal line within Markdown, and we also talked about how we have to put a blank line, otherwise it will count as a heading. Then we talked about hyperlinks and links in general, and we did many links. We also linked an email address. We then learned how to link a given part of any really part of your Jupyter notebook, which was this part. We then talked about how to link a certain part like this to a certain part like this. So really just linking one part of code to another and vice versa. We then talked about how we could link a local file with our standard code like this, our attachment file, and we also learned how we could use our imgsrc to link a file from a link rather than using a file from standard code or a local file. Then we learned about how we can use backslashes to have our syntax remain in its original state and not be using shortcuts. We then talked about all the different things we could use for escape characters. Then we talked about HTML. We talked about our super important practices with HTML to make sure that we do not mess up HTML and Markdown syntax. And we also talked about how they are discrete, and we have to deal with them as if they're discrete, not just say they're discrete. So we did a lot of that, and then we topped it off with a very good disclaimer that you are not done. So please do go to the next video on this series to learn more. But awesome job, coders. We did a lot today, and I know it was a lot. Now, I have a recommendation though before you go anywhere. Please watch this video and the first video one more time, just so you can get an idea. If you still have any confusion, please do just skim through the videos a third time to just see the certain parts where you're having trouble. Then, if you're still having trouble, feel free to comment down below and I'll help you out. Also, please do leave a comment down below about your feedback on this video. Other than that, if you did like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. See you later.